being part of this project has made me feel part of something that can actually be heard.
This project has definitely given me a new sense of direction. It's where I want to go. It's what I want to do now.
Free But Not Free gave us a unique opportunity to explore the ways in which we might work with women on community probation orders, using arts, culture and heritage, encouraging people to reclaim a new identity which is more positive.
So the voice isn't just about their offending behaviour, it's about them as women, as mothers, as sisters, as people who have an opinion and have a voice.
Free but not free, that is me.
It gives us a bit of a kick up the backside, really, you know. I'm enjoying coming out, I'm loving coming to these different places and learning about history and which I loved anyway, but it's just opened my life up a lot more.
The project's helped me to communicate about my story that I didn't think I'd ever be able to say. So this is all about us who want our voices to be heard.
It's about women, how they've been treated through the years, haven't been listened to.
Yeah, great.
It's not been good, really.
Changing Lives works with people involved in the criminal justice system, and this gave us a unique opportunity to explore the ways in which we might work with them differently, using arts, culture and heritage, so that people stop seeing themselves as just an offender, but moving on from that. The project's been delivered in partnership with Tyne and Wear Archives and Museums. So the very first session that we do in the Women's Hubs, we're taking some items from the archives collections. One of those items is the Scold's bridle mask, which is a cast iron mask that used to be given to husbands to put on their wives if they were talking out of turn or gossiping.
This would have been placed over the woman's head, and this part would have fastened around the back of her neck. And the clasp that you can see, this would have been then almost locked into place, so she wasn't able to obviously remove it herself. A scold was basically a woman who was speaking out of turn. It was a woman who was almost speaking above her station. She may have been accused of being a gossip. It was basically a way of controlling women's voices, a way of controlling who they were talking to or who they were talking about.
Well, a bit traumatic, really, aren't they? I didn't know what this was until quite horrific when you look at the pictures. It's called a scold mask or something like that. Yeah, it's horrendous. Imagine getting put on you though, because you talk too much. And God, I don't think I would ever be out of it. Really, it's it's horrible to look at.
I think what went really well in the project was the opportunity for women to re-engage with history and heritage. I think for certain community groups who have not had a positive experience of history and they reflect back on the lessons that they had in history, and if they hadn't been relevant or of interest, then history has been kind of had this black mark against it, if you like, in their own experience. So it's important that this project enabled visits to museum and galleries as part of that process, exploring who they are, explore their identity, using the museum, using our collections in a really creative way.
Oh, there's been quite a few workshops. I think the one that stands out most is the mug shots. It was a book and it had loads of different mug shots in of ladies from over the past century, you know, and the crimes that they'd committed. And it was just so interesting trying to think and work out what they'd done. And some of the things, it was like nothing, you know, it was just like it was their way of living. It's because they had nothing and they were, you know, they had to do what they're doing to get along, to live. They're just so different to what the criminals these days, well, what does a criminal these days look like really, do you know what I mean? It's just, some of them, they just look like, when you see pictures of the old Titanic and the women sitting on the Titanic, you know, that's just what they looked like. It was like, some of them, they just looked like normal people.
For me, obviously when we're seeing the album that was found of the photographs, the crime book kind of thing of what they were there for, what the dates were, I found that really overwhelming and I found it so interesting. And obviously going in the archives, the archive was probably one of the best parts of it for me as well, because I found it was so peaceful, and I found that I felt safe and I felt comfortable.
It was always one of my aims to encourage the women to start accessing other places. If you live your life in chaos, in chaotic places, how do you ever move out of that? But the women talked about feelings of being grounded and secure and safe when they were in the archives. Those places are open to the public and free. So they now know they can go back there if they want to feel that feeling again. It allows them to access places that they weren't before.
Free but not free, that is me. Free but not free.
So there was one particular group that loved music, and I said to them, what about inspiration for writing a song? Oh, but we couldn't do that. Really? So I got in touch with Becky Owen, who's fabulous. She comes in and delivers a workshop with the women. It's easier for the women to talk about a song that they're writing for Becky than it is to say that's how I felt.
So the aim of the project has been to work with women to write songs, to write new material together that represents something about what we feel around the theme of freedom. So it's been a case of using a trigger kind of provocation, if you like, a question really to the women, to ask them what it is to be free, what for them is free on a daily basis, on a kind of bigger scale, and what is not free. Let's have a real conversation about what our lives are like and how the things that we experience impact us.
So we had I feel free when I go to bed and lock the door, shut the kids out.
So there's a sense of sanctuary there. I'm sure we've all got a room. Sometimes some free, for some of us it's the loo, isn't it?
Well, the song, so all the different hubs contributed to that. So verses and like the lady who sang it, who put it together, was asking the hubs about some of the experiences, like what makes you feel free, what doesn't make you feel free. So all the women, like, they said what made them. So it was all written down. Then she went away and she came back with this song.
Isn't it interesting how we're so drawn to water?
So the process has been one really of asking the women to share as honestly as they can, and then me capturing a lot of the language that they're using and a lot of the words that they're saying, some of it quite difficult, challenging stuff that people are going through or have been through. And then starting to think, in my mind, as people are talking and looking at this board of lyrics that aren't lyrics yet, that's just kind of almost random language, but it represents something very clear for people about the themes of free and not free.
Always overthinking, wow.
And so I take that massive sheet of paper into a room with my little microphone and my laptop, start having a little sing, have a little play, improvise based on the lyrics that have been coming.
This image of the water's edge, lots of people, when we talked about when they feel most free, quite a few of us identified being near water, whether that was the sea or a river. I've been walking by the river's edge.
When we sing, there's a certain element where we feel exposed and revealed and vulnerable. But when we allow that to happen in the room with someone else in the room, that immediately creates a sense of intimacy and connection.
Free but not free, that is me.
It was all right. I was like, no, I'll start at the back, and I did. I'm not a singer, but if we can do this, yeah, and obviously you always get certain girls that are like, I can do it, I'll do it, which is brilliant because they make everyone else do it.
You and I'll do me.
And you think, well, all right, there's nothing wrong with us.
Whoop, whoop, great.
And to hear it was quite emotional, to be honest. It's made us be able to talk about my experiences. It's letting us talk. I survived and I escaped. I got away. And I was very, very lucky. Could have been dead. And I've met women that have been through the same thing, but I've never been able to say, oh, well, that's what happened to me. I just wouldn't have said it. But now I do.
I gotta take it as it comes every day.
In the women's hubs where I work, I constantly heard women say that those places aren't for people like us. They were talking about art places, museums, theatres. So I come back in with a challenge. You told me that place wasn't for people like you, but we're now going to go there together and see what we think. There's been many workshops in Baltic producing art. There's been the images of the mugshot images book. Our women in the women's hubs wrote the stories on the napkins. There's also been some brilliant poetry. There's been some artwork that's collected now. There's been a banner produced as well.
Break the chain, it's called. And I think it means a lot of things to ourselves, like on probation orders and things like that. Break that cycle that many, many women and young people have where there is no way out. There's nobody there to pull you out.
The project involved quite arty things. Yeah, we went to see an exhibition at the Baltic. I'm not actually quite sure what it was all about, to be honest. It was really traumatic, actually, because showing you what went on different films and the famine and the disease and people being killed. I come out quite depressed, actually, and I had to go and watch it twice as well.
We then came back and worked with an artist around, we did weaving, which is very much a representation of what real life is like, so how your life has different layers that interweave with each other at different times.
What we did was, it was magazines we were given, and we just had to pick out these magazines, things that they were quite arty magazines, and it was things that stood out that maybe represented my life, sort of thing.
It's like, get out of that. Go around that corner.
So that's how you want.
And then it was interweaving them. It was like at school, what we learned in school in the olden days when you meet the old lanterns and things.
There's all sorts of ways in which creativity and art and craft making can help people change what they feel about themselves and then potentially change their behaviour. And working with people creatively helps them explore their sense of identity, helps them explore their self-confidence, and helps them do things that change the way that they think about themselves.
So the women chose images that they felt said something about them, but the conversations that were happening during that time were very much around what mattered to them in their lives.
I think this one, it's like how you're supposed to be, how you're supposed to look, how you're supposed to dress. There's a conversation I had with my nan yesterday, and she was just on about my tattoos and things and my hair colour and whatnot. And she said, I looked like I was going to go to the circus. That's what she said. So I come away feeling really, really down, and I think this is like what's expected, do you know what I mean? That's how... My first one, it was a cartoon character, and it was like with the words help and things, and it was like the way I feel inside, you know. I quite often I'm like, I need help, do you know what I mean? But it doesn't come out. You know, I think people say he's quite this kind of like bubbly, jolly girl, you know, sort of thing. But sometimes I'm just not, like inside, I'm like dying, really, you know. It meant a lot to me, you know. It was like when it was done, it was just me.
The women that we work with carry a lot of guilt and shame around the offences or their lifestyles that they've had. So the aim is always to encourage the women to take on a new identity other than that of an offender. The group particularly that worked within the Baltic designing the banner stopped calling themselves us kind of people. By the time they'd finished working at the Baltic for a few weeks, they were asking the artist if it was okay for them to call themselves artists now. So there was a shift in attitude that encourages them to claim a new identity.
I like the poetry. I think a lot of the girls got a lot of it out there, you know. I was talking about just like a relationship abuse, and it's quite good to see how creative everybody can be, you know. Just little things, and I think there's a lot of girls wasted, you know, and they've got so many hidden talents.
What it's done for us is it's making us think differently. I'm seeing things through this time that I've never ever seen through for 35 years. People are listening to me, and I've never had that, never. So that's massive. Something's going to happen about that now, but I just need to be brave.
A year ago, it was just an absolute mess. I'd been done for drink driving. I was alcohol. I was using drugs. And I couldn't see my children, you know. So it's all been a fight, and I wasn't getting the right help that I needed. And through this, it's just opened my eyes, and it's just made me want to learn things, and it's really brought us out my shell, loads.
I've been walking by the water's edge.
This is the verse from the poem that was done at one of the hubs, and these are my words. I was never ever right, forever always wrong. You finished my every word, and my addiction you brought back on. Thank fuck now you're gone. Now I'm slowly back on my feet. Me you shall never ever defeat.